Hello, I'm Donna from Riverside Beads, and today we're going to show you how to do a beaded Kumihino bracelet. I'm going to show you how to add your beads and crystals and all the techniques involved with it. So we're ready to show you your beaded Kumihino technique now. We've got our Kumihino disc, we've got our beads and our cord, and I'll explain how to set all this up. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our cord. Now the way that you work out your Kumihino length of cord that you need, you take your cord, you measure your wrist if it's a bracelet or your neck if it's a necklace. So I've taken my cord here, that's once. I now do 4 times the length I need it to be. 1, 2, 3 and 4. I've got a little bit spare there. 4 times is around enough. I've pre-cut this piece into a 1 metre length, and you cut 4 1 metre lengths. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4. These are pre-cut into the metre, and they are all the same colour. They're a 0.6 macrame cord. This is a great cord for threading your beads onto, nice and firm and strong for this technique. So I've pre-cut these. Now, really important part here as well that I've pre-done. I have taken my cord, I've got 8 ends at either end of the 4 pieces, and this technique is crucial for fitting your beads on. You take the end of your cord and you take a nice sharp pair of scissors. You cut the cord at a nice angle there, so we're cutting a nice sharp point, and that's really important that that point is really fine on each of the cords and that we've got that nice and sharp there. We then take clear nail varnish and we paint it over the end of our cord. Now it's important we get round all the sides. I'm turning the cord here, rotating it round and painting the nail varnish over all sides of the cord, about 1 inch or so up. I've pre-done that on all of these here, and you'll see then they're nice and firm like a needle. And that's really important. It's important that it's nice and sharp and a point, and it's important that it's nice and firm as well. So we pre-do that and we allow the nail varnish to dry off. We then take all of our cords with all of our ends done in that same way, and we take a surplus piece of cord. It's the same colour here that you'll be able to see what I'm doing on the technique. It's just a spare piece that you've got left over from another project. Tie a knot or a double knot fairly loosely. It needs to be tight enough to secure it, but loose enough that we can get it off at the end. So I've tied that around there. You then push that centre of that cord with those pieces hanging down through the centre of your disc, and those bits sit underneath the disc there. We then lay the cord out on the top of the disc. Now all of these are the same colour, so the pattern isn't determined by how we lay the cords out now. It's going to be determined by how we add the beads on. You take your cord and you position it either side of north, east, south and west. So I'm taking the 2 down there. Now as you're doing this, if you notice there, I pulled that away from the centre. That's really important that that sits in the centre of your cord. We'll readjust that in a moment when I get these in place, I think. So I'm going to hold that in the centre. And we're going to pop those either side there. Okay, that's not too bad. I'll just tighten up that one and reposition that into the centre. Okay, we're ready to start our braiding. So we've got those either side of north, east, south and west. We need to do a section of this braiding with no beads on. That's the first technique we need to do. So I'm going to show you how to do the braiding technique and how we add the beads onto it, and then how we bring those into the piece. We take our top right hand cord down to our bottom right. Now as we do this, on these first couple of repetitions, you need to make sure you don't over pull it because it's not attached to anything, it's not secure at the moment. So if you pull too hard on one side, it'll pull the other side through. We then take our bottom left straight up to our top left, and that's our 2 repetitions done. We're then going to rotate this and we're going to go anti-clockwise, and then we're going to repeat the process. Top right to bottom right, bottom left up to top left. Rotate, quarter turn anti-clockwise, top right to bottom right, bottom left, up to top left. Quarter turn, top right to bottom right, bottom left to top left, quarter turn. So it's right to right, left to left, and turn. Right to right, left to left and turn. It's important that you don't cross the braids over. They cross over this one, but they go straight down. But when you take your top one up, it just goes straight up. That can be a common mistake that people make. So we repeat this round a few times. What we're trying to create here is just a small piece of cord without any beads on to then glue our ends on when we get to the point of adding our end caps. So that's probably enough that I need to do there. Now what I've done, I leave 3 down. So I take my right to my right and I leave it down, and that's how I remember where I am. So I've done my right to my right. I now know when I come back to it, I take my left straight up to my left, and that's where I next am. So at this point I can go underneath, I can pull on my surplus piece of cord, and I can check that I've got a small amount to glue my end on at the end. I'm quite happy with that. Okay, now we're ready to add our beads on. So to create the pattern that I need to create, I'm just going to pop my top one up, and I'm going to rotate it because this is where I next need to be. So what I need to do is I need to add my beads on in a certain way to create the pattern going through here. I'm going to take my top right cord and I'm going to add the smallest of my beads on. So these are my size 8s. I'll just pop a couple on each strand to show you the technique, and then I can switch to the one that I've done earlier to show you how it braids through. So I've popped some of my size 8s on. Now these are the smallest hold of the beads that we're putting on, but you can see with the technique with the nail varnish on the end of the cord, making it like a little needle, I'm picking them up straight from my bead mat, and they're threading on beautifully. If you get one that's a little bit stiff to get on, because the holes do vary slightly, even though they're a good sort of fairly uniform bead, give it a little twist and push on, and so long as that's nice and firm still, that'll keep that all in place. So I've only popped a few on. It says in the pattern how many to put on each strand and how to use those 3, but for now I've just popped 4 on each one. I am then going to the one to the top left of it, and I'm going to add some of my size 5s on this one. So these are a great pearl lustre on these one. They're in a nice, very trendy spring colours. Got tangled on my piece there. So I'm going to pop 4 of those onto there, on that side. I'm going to go down to the bottom, to the right hand side, and I'm going to pop another 4 on there. As I say, this 4 number is just for ease now. The pattern explains how many to put on for each pattern that we do. Okay, so that's that one there. I then need to add some beads onto these cords here as well. So I need to add some more of the size 5s, and I need to add my crystals on. So my size 5s are going to go on my top one here. Pop a few on there. Just got hold of 3 there. It will show you the technique. So they're ready on there. And then I'm going to go onto this opposite bottom one here. I'm threading those straight off the bead mat onto my cord. And then my last one that I need to add is going to be my crystals. So these are a beautiful faceted round crystal. Now these have quite a fine hole in them, the crystals do. But again, with this technique, they thread on with ease. I don't tend to pick these up off my bead mat because they're a bit finer to get. I tend to hold them in my hand, but it's whatever suits you. There's no right or wrong there. So I've popped a few of those on. Now what I do is I tend to put the quantity, when I do this piece in full, I put the quantity I need on each strand. I leave so many on the top of the disc, maybe 10 or so, just as a good working number to work with. And then I put the rest, if need be, down on the cord. So if I've added more than I need, I would just leave them hanging on the cord, tie a little knot in, and then slide them on as I need to work with them. So here's how the technique works. I'll show you a couple of repetitions on this one, and then I can switch to the one that I've done a few more on. So the first thing that we do is take the bead and we slide it down under the cord. We then follow our right to right, left to left, bring that one down, but add in a bead every time that you do. We then take our left one, pop the bead under and pop it up there. We quarter turn exactly the same. Now we're on our crystal next. These are the trickier of the ones to fit under because they're quite bulky. So you push them under and need to make sure that when you bring that cord over, they stay where you've put them. It will all sit in as it starts to braid through. That was right to right, my left to left. That one behaved and went under nicely. and then I rotate back on my right, bring that down. Make sure your beads are all out the way as well. And rotate. Right to right, bead under, left to left. So we pop the bead under there, make sure it's sitting right under the cord, and rotate it. I'll switch now to the one that I've done pre-started earlier so I can continue with the technique to show you. Okay, we're ready to finish our braid. So I've continued to the point where I need my braid to be in size. Remembering that when you add your end cap, it does add around, well, you've got an extension chain on it, so you can add up to a couple of inches, but it does add around an inch or so anyway automatically. So I've finished my beads and I've done some standard braiding like we did at the beginning with just the cord. I've then popped some glue into there and I've left that to dry. If you haven't got time to do that, you can tie the ends off with one another. So I need to take these off the disc. I can show you how to do that. I'm taking the opposite sides off and I'm tying a knot there and securing that down. Now I don't need to do that because I've added my glue and it's hopefully dry. So what I'll do is I'll pop my other sides off through my disc. My disc can go out the way now. So here's my braid. So I've made this a little bit smaller than it needs to be, just so we can show you the finished piece. So I've got my braiding at the beginning that I started with. I've got my cord on the inside and my beads added. And then I've got my section that I did at the end as well there. So the first thing that I need to do is go back to the beginning and to the point where I tied this bit as a surplus piece. So I'm going to slide that out and that's going to show me my end bit that I need to put my first end cap onto. So here's my end cap. I've separated the two sides of my end cap. I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to squeeze a third of a capful into there and I scrape it off on the edge to secure that. And what I'm going to do is pop that onto there and hopefully there's enough glue on there that if I pop that on and squidge that round and turn it round like that to rotate it, that will just secure that on for me. Now what I tend to do with this, I tend to see how it sits and potentially manipulate the beads a little bit just to make them sit correctly. But that we need to leave that to dry really before we do too much more of that. So that's one end on. I go to the other end. Now I've got this surplus cord and hopefully I've got my glue in there that's dry. So I'm going to cut this off. I did actually leave that knot in, so we're doubly safe on this one. I'm going to take those over to one side. They're great for little spare bits for tidying your end. Then take my glue again, third of a capful or so. So squeeze the glue into the cap. Around a third of a capful, something like that. And I'm going to pop that onto there. So I'm popping that in there, squidging it round again just to make sure the glue coats all of the cord and pop that on like so. So these need to dry. They need a bit of time to just sit into place and dry, and then that'll be ready to use as your finished piece. So you can see the extra that it adds on from your end cap, and then if you need to, you can use your extension chain as well. Thank you for watching our Kumihino technique. I hope you've enjoyed it and picked up some top tips today. I look forward to seeing you again soon on Create and Craft.